I've been married to Lisa for 5 years. To everyone outside, we were that perfect couple. We had the kind of relationship that made friends envious. Social media posts filled with smiles, adventures, and love. Our friends would often compliment us on how well we seemed to fit together. We had a comfortable life. I had a decent job in marketing, and she was a successful graphic designer. We shared a cozy home in a good neighborhood, and we even had plans for a family. But in the back of my mind, something started to gnaw at me. It began with small changes in her behavior. The late nights at work became more frequent, and she started to be less available for our weekend plans. I remember one evening in particular, she had told me she needed to finish a project for a client. I didn't think much of it at the time, but when I got home that night, she was unusually distant. I tried to brush it off, telling myself she was just stressed. But as weeks passed, the excuses piled up. I'm busy, I have a deadline, or I need to go out for a meeting. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Trust is the cornerstone of a relationship, right? But there was this nagging feeling that I couldn't shake off. The way she would wince when I asked about her day, or the way her phone buzzed in her pocket whenever we were together. It was like there was a secret world that I wasn't a part of, and that thought was suffocating. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Friday afternoon when I got a text from my buddy Mark, asking if I wanted to grab a drink. He mentioned he saw Lisa at a bar near her work the previous night, laughing and flirting with some guy. My stomach dropped. Lisa had told me she was working late. I made up an excuse to leave work early and drove straight to that bar. My heart raced as I parked, and I felt sick thinking about what I might find. As I walked in, my eyes scanned the room. And then I saw her. Lisa was sitting at the bar, laughing, her head tilted back and her eyes sparkling. But she wasn't alone. There was a guy next to her, leaning in. Close, my pulse quickened as I moved closer to get a better look. He had his arm draped over her shoulders, and she didn't seem to mind at all. I felt anger boil within me, bubbling over into something I could hardly control. I couldn't just stand there. I approached them with a mix of fury and hurt, each step feeling heavier than the last. I called out her name. She turned, and her face went pale as she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and panic. That was when everything came crashing down. The guy, realizing the predicament, quickly stood up and made a hasty exit, leaving me face to face with the woman I thought I knew. So this is how it is, huh? Working late is code for cheating. I felt my voice shake, but I pushed through. Lisa stammered, trying to come up with an excuse, but all I could hear were the lies. "It's not what you think," she insisted, but the denial felt hollow. I wanted to scream, to cry, to unleash all the pain that was suddenly surging through me. Instead, I stood there feeling utterly defeated. In that moment, as she tried to explain her way out of the situation, I realized that the woman I thought I knew, the wife I'd built a life with, was gone. She played the perfect wife in public while betraying everything we had built behind closed doors. My heart was shattered, and all I could think was how I was going to navigate this mess. I left the bar, and as I drove home, the weight of anger and betrayal settled in my chest. What was I supposed to do now? How could this have happened? My mind spiraled with questions as I tried to find clarity in the chaos that had just become my life. I knew I had a decision to make, but for now, I just needed to digest the reality of my situation. I was drowning in confusion, betrayal, and a whirlwind of emotions as I drove home, unsure of what the future held. When I got home, the silence was deafening. The cozy little house we shared felt like a prison. I walked in, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Everywhere I looked, I was reminded of our memories together, pictures of us smiling on vacations, her favorite mug on the kitchen counter, the framed photo of our wedding day. It all felt like a cruel joke now. I sat down on the couch trying to process what had just happened. Part of me wanted to call her, scream at her, demand answers, but the other part of me was still reeling from the shock. How could she do this to me? I thought we were happy. I thought I knew her. But over the years, I had learned that people often hide their true selves beneath layers of charm and deception. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the front door open. My heart raced as I realized Lisa was home. She stepped inside, her face a mixture of confusion and concern as she caught sight of me sitting in the dark living room. "Why are you home so early?" she asked, trying to sound casual. But I could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that I knew something was wrong. I didn't respond at first. I just sat there, staring at her, trying to gauge what was going on in her mind. She moved closer, concern etched on her face. "Honey, are you okay?" That was when I snapped. "Am I okay? You're asking me if I'm okay after I saw you with another man at the bar." I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice, and it felt good to finally speak the truth aloud. Her expression changed from concern to something else, defensiveness perhaps. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated but quickly added, "That was just a client. We were discussing work." I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. "Really? Because it looked a lot more like flirting to me. You were practically in his lap, laughing like it was some sort of date." The way her eyes narrowed told me she was gearing up for a fight. "You don't understand. You've never been supportive of my career. I needed to network." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Networking? Is that what you call it? You've been lying to me for weeks about your late nights, and now this. You think I'll just accept that?" Lisa opened her mouth to argue, but I interrupted her. "I saw everything, Lisa. You can't just spin this into something it's not. You cheated on me." Her expression shifted again, a mix of anger and frustration. "You're overreacting. You always do this. I can't have friends or talk to people without you thinking there's something going on." I stood up, the energy in the room charged with tension. "This is not about having friends. This is about trust, our trust. You shattered that when you decided to betray me." For a moment, she seemed lost for words. Bravado faded and she looked genuinely upset. "I'm sorry," she finally said, but it felt hollow. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Didn't mean for what to happen, Lisa. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" I felt my chest tightening, anger battling with the sadness that was creeping in. "You've been lying to my face for months. What am I supposed to do with that? Just forgive you and move on?" "I was going to tell you," she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. I didn't know how. How could you think that would make things better?" I asked, incredulity washing over me. "You think I would just stand by while you played house with someone else? I'm not okay with this. You've destroyed everything we had." Lisa's facade began to crack, and I could see the fear in her eyes. "Please, just give me a chance to explain." I cut her off, feeling the weight of every emotion crashing down on me. "You need to understand something. You can't just apologize and expect everything to go back to normal. You broke my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get that back." As the confrontation dragged on, I felt both drained and alert. My heart raced, and my head spun with confusion and anger. It became painfully clear that this confrontation was just the beginning of a long and arduous path ahead. After what felt like an eternity of back-and-forth accusations and desperate pleas, I reached a breaking point. I needed space. "I can't do this right now. I need time to think." I turned away, the weight of the moment pressing down on me as I walked toward the bedroom, leaving her standing there, her expression a mix of regret and defiance. As I lay in bed, the reality of the situation crashed over me like waves on a rocky shore. I felt betrayed, confused, and utterly lost. I had thought we were building a life together, but now it all felt like a lie. The emotional turmoil swirled within me, leaving me with more questions than answers. How could I ever look at her the same way again? How would I move forward from this? I closed my eyes, hoping that sleep would offer some clarity, but all I could think about was how everything had changed in an instant. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I walked around in a daze, trying to process everything that happened. Lisa was still there, but it felt like we were living in separate worlds. I went to work, but my mind was elsewhere, lost in a fog of anger and betrayal. My colleagues noticed I was off, but I couldn't bring myself to share what was happening. "How do you explain that your perfect little life has turned into a nightmare?" Lisa tried to talk to me several times, but I wasn't ready to hear her excuses. Each time she approached, I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. She would start with, "Can we talk?" And I would cut her off with a curt no. I didn't want to hear her explanations or rationalizations. I just wanted to be left alone, but she wouldn't let it go. One evening, after days of silence and attempts to act normal, she came into the living room where I was sitting, scrolling mindlessly through my phone. "Can we please talk?" she pleaded, her voice softer this time, almost breaking. I looked up, meeting her gaze. There was a time when I would have melted at that look, but now it just filled me with resentment. What's there to talk about, Lisa? You made your choices. She took a step closer, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I messed up, I know that, but I love you, I want to fix this. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Love, how could she say that after what she did? You love me. Is that why you were getting cozy with some guy behind my back? You don't get to claim love while you're cheating on me. I know, she cried, her voice breaking. But it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I was feeling lost and he was there. Feeling lost, I echoed incredulously. You think that justifies what you did? You think I'd accept that as an excuse? I didn't mean to hurt you, I swear, it just happened. She was pleading and part of me wanted to feel compassion, but I was too consumed with hurt. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. You could have talked to me, Lisa. If you were feeling something was missing, you could have come to me instead of running into someone else's arms. But you didn't, you chose to cheat. Her silence weighed heavily in the room and she dropped her gaze to the floor. I know I was stupid, I shouldn't have. She trailed off, her voice fading. I felt a mix of anger and pity for her. I wanted to scream, to rage at the injustice of it all, but I was also aware that deep down I was still in love with her. This conflict waged war in my mind as I tried to decide what to do next. Finally, I spoke again. I need space. I can't think with you hovering over me, asking for forgiveness. I need to figure out if I even want to talk about fixing this. Her face fell and I could see the fear creeping in. What do you mean? You want to separate? You can't mean that. I sighed, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I just need to think, Lisa. We can't pretend this didn't happen. I'm not sure I can ever trust you again. Every time I look at you, I'll see him. The panic in her eyes was palpable, and for a moment I felt a flicker of guilt, but I quickly quelled it. I had to prioritize my own well-being. I need time to figure out what I want. You need to respect that. She nodded, tears now streaming down her face. Okay, I'll give you space, just don't give up on us. As she walked away, I felt a mix of relief and heartache. I felt like I was losing a piece of myself with every step she took. I allowed myself to wallow in confusion for a few more days, but eventually I knew I had to take action. I started evaluating our relationship, thinking about the good moments alongside the painful ones. I remembered the laughter, the intimacy, the dreams we had shared. How could she throw it all away? My heart ached as I weighed the good against the bad. Then came a night when I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, the betrayal spinning through my mind like a relentless cycle. I grabbed my phone and opened social media, searching for distractions. That's when I started scrolling through pictures of us, which only fueled my anger. In one of the photos, I looked so happy and Lisa was beaming next to me. I remembered that day vividly, the joyful moments we shared, the promises we made. And then it hit me like a freight train. Did she feel any of that while she was cheating? Did those moments even mean anything to her? The thought sent me spiraling deeper into despair, and I finally knew I had to confront the reality of what had happened and what I wanted moving forward. This was not just about the affair, this was about my life and what I deserved. By the end of the week, I planned to have a serious conversation with Lisa. It was time to lay everything on the table. I needed to figure out if we could salvage what was left or if I had to walk away and start anew. The thought was terrifying, but the more I reflected, the more I realized that I couldn't stay in a broken relationship, just hoping it would magically fix itself. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, I finally felt a sense of clarity settling in. No matter what the outcome would be, I had to prioritize my own happiness. Whatever decision I made, I needed to be honest with myself and with her. It was the only way I could begin to heal. By the time I decided to confront Lisa, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I had spent days mentally preparing myself for this conversation, but nothing could truly prepare me for the emotional roller coaster I was about to embark on. I needed to be honest, and that honesty would likely break whatever fragile remnants of our relationship still existed. I waited until the evening when I knew she would be home. I had to find a time when we would be alone without the distractions of work or friends. I set the scene, a quiet night in our living room, the dim light casting a somber shadow over our familiar surroundings. The atmosphere felt thick with tension as I paced, waiting for her to arrive. When she walked through the door, her eyes met mine, and I could see the apprehension written all over her face. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice tentative. I nodded, keeping my expression serious. "We need to talk, Lisa." Her features tightened and she nodded slowly, leading us to the couch where we had spent countless hours discussing our dreams and plans. Tonight, however, it felt more like a courtroom. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since the other night," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "About us, about everything that's happened. I won't pretend that I can just forget about the affair. It's something that's shattered my trust." She winced and I could see the tears forming in her eyes again. "I know I hurt you," she said softly. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I never wanted to put you through this, really." I held up my hand, needing her to let me finish. "I understand that you're sorry, but sorry doesn't fix this. What you did was a choice, Lisa. You made a conscious decision to betray me and our relationship." I watched her flinch at my words, but I had to keep going. "I want to know why. What was going through your mind? Why did you feel the need to seek someone else out?" My heart raced as I prepared myself for whatever excuse she was going to throw at me. She looked down, her voice trembling. "I was feeling so overwhelmed. I thought you didn't care anymore. You were always busy with work and I felt alone. When I met him, it was just a moment of weakness. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. But it did mean something, didn't it?" I pressed, frustration seeping into my tone. "It meant enough for you to jeopardize everything we built together. That's not just a mistake, that's a decision." "I know," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't know how to talk to you about what I was feeling." I shook my head, feeling like I was repeating myself. "That's the thing, Lisa. Communication is key in a relationship. You had options. You could have come to me and we could have worked through it together. But instead, you chose to lie and cheat. Now we're here and I don't know what to do." "I want to fix this," she insisted, her eyes wide with desperation. "I love you. I just made a terrible mistake. Please, let's go to counseling. Let's work through it together." That suggestion hung in the air, and for a moment I felt a flicker of hope. The idea of saving our marriage was tempting, but the reality of what she had done weighed heavily on my heart. Could I really trust her again? Would counseling even help? "Counseling might help, but it won't erase what you did," I said slowly, trying to gauge my own feelings. "I do know if I can look at you the same way after this. The thought of you with someone else, laughing, sharing intimacy, it's etched in my mind." "I understand, I really do," she replied, tears streaming down her face. "I just need you to give me a chance. I'll do whatever it takes to prove my love to you. I can change." I took a moment to collect my thoughts. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Lisa. I need to think about what I want moving forward. Do I want to stay and try to rebuild, or do I need to walk away?" Her face fell and she looked utterly defeated. "I can't lose you, I can't. I'll fight for us, please just think about it." I nodded slowly, recognizing the pain in her voice. "I'll think about it, but understand that this isn't as simple as it sounds. I need time to process everything. I need to figure out if I can trust you again." The conversation hung in the air like a heavy fog, filled with uncertainty and unresolved emotions. I felt torn between my love for her and the overwhelming betrayal I'd experienced. As the evening wore on, we fell into a stilted silence, each of us swallowed by our own thoughts. I knew I had a long road ahead, whether it meant rebuilding or starting anew. The decision weighed on me like a heavy anchor, and as Lisa retreated to the bedroom, I felt the hollowness settle in again. That night, as I lay in bed, I turned over every possibility in my head. Should I give her a second chance? Could I ever truly forgive her? My heart ached with uncertainty, and as sleep finally took hold, I realized that whatever decision I made would change the course of my life forever. I had to be sure, sure of what I wanted, sure of what I deserved, and above all, sure that I could find my way back to happiness, whether it was with her or without her. The next few days passed in a blur of confusion and introspection. I kept replaying our conversation in my mind, weighing the pros and cons of staying in my marriage versus leaving it all behind. I found myself oscillating between moments of hope and despair. On one hand, Lisa seemed genuinely remorseful, pleading for another chance, while on the other, the betrayal loomed like a dark shadow over everything we once shared. I decided to take a few days off work to clear my head. I needed space to think without the pressures of daily life pressing down on me. I took long walks, trying to breathe in the fresh air and find clarity among the chaos. But each time I passed our usual hangouts or saw happy couples, the familiar pang of hurt would hit me. It was like walking through a minefield of memories, and I was terrified I might step on one and explode. I spent one particularly rainy afternoon at a coffee shop, nursing a cup of black coffee, when I noticed a couple seated nearby, laughing over their drinks. They looked so carefree, so in love, and it made my heart ache. I couldn't help but remember how I used to feel that way with Lisa. It was a gut-wrenching reminder of what I had lost. That night I sat on the couch, scrolling through photos on my phone, good times, bad times, moments that felt sacred. I stopped on a picture of us at the beach, her hair blowing in the wind, that infectious smile lighting up her face. In that moment, it struck me just how deep our connection had been, and it broke my heart to think how easily it had all unraveled. But the ache for what was only served to amplify my anger toward the choices she made. Every day that passed, I felt more resolved to confront this head-on. I needed to take control of my life again. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I was not just angry with Lisa. I was angry with myself for allowing her actions to dictate my happiness. Finally, I decided to do something that had been weighing on my mind. I reached out to a therapist, someone who could help me navigate the emotional turmoil I was in. I scheduled a session for the following week, hoping it would provide me with some clarity. At the very least, I needed someone to talk to who wouldn't judge me or take sides. When I returned home after my first therapy session, Lisa was there, waiting for me with a tentative expression. "How was it?" she asked, her voice soft and careful. "It was good. I talked about a lot of things, including us," I replied, trying to gauge her reaction. Her eyes widened with interest. "What did you say?" I told her about the affair. I talked about how I'm feeling and what I need to move forward. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "I have to figure out what I want, and honestly, I don't know if that includes you anymore." Her face fell, and I could see the hurt flash in her eyes. "Please don't say that. I'm trying to make things right." "I know you are," I said, trying to soften my tone. "But it's not that simple. I have to take care of myself first. I need to see if I can rebuild my trust in you, and that will take time." "I'm willing to fight for you, for us, whatever it takes," she insisted, her voice shaking. "I want to prove that I can be the wife you deserve." I took a deep breath. "It's not just about proving something to me, Lisa. You need to do this for yourself too. You need to understand why you made the choices you did and what led you to seek someone else." She nodded, her expression earnest. "I will, I promise. Just please don't give up on me yet." As much as her words resonated with me, I felt a heavy sense of doubt. "I can't make any promises right now. I need to see real change, not just words. I need to see that you're committed to working through this, not just for me, but for yourself." In the days that followed, we both began to explore what it meant to rebuild a relationship that had been fractured. Lisa started attending therapy sessions, her own, and I could see she was genuinely trying to reflect on her actions. It was a small glimmer of hope, but I was still hesitant. We began talking more openly about our feelings, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were making some progress. Yet every time we had a heart-to-heart, the memory of her betrayal loomed in the background. It was as if I was walking on a tightrope, balancing between hope for the future and the fear of falling back into the abyss of heartbreak. We set aside time to discuss what our lives would look like moving forward. Lisa suggested we take a weekend trip, just the two of us, to reconnect away from the distractions of our daily lives. I hesitated but ultimately agreed, thinking that maybe a change of scenery could help us find some clarity together. As the weekend approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Would this be the turning point for us? Or would it just reinforce the chasm that had opened up between us? I didn't have any answers yet, but I knew I had to face whatever was coming head-on. I was determined to take control of my own narrative, regardless of what that might mean for our relationship. As we packed our bags that Friday evening, I caught a glimpse of Lisa, her excitement palpable. Yet behind it, I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. I realized we were both stepping into the unknown, hoping for healing but uncertain of the outcome. Whatever happened on this trip would set the tone for our future, a chance at reconciliation or the beginning of a painful separation. With those thoughts swirling in my mind, I took one last look around our home, a place filled with memories that now felt bittersweet. I hoped that this getaway might bring us closer to understanding, or at the very least, provide me with the clarity I so desperately sought. It was time to see if we could truly rebuild or if it was time to let go. The drive to the cabin was filled with a tense silence, punctuated only by the sounds of the radio playing softly in the background. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on us. Lisa kept glancing at me, her expression a mix of hope and anxiety. As we wound our way through the scenic route, the trees whizzed past, but inside I was stuck in a loop of thoughts, wondering if this trip would truly help us, or if it was just a bandage over a wound that ran too deep. When we arrived at the cabin, I was surprised by how beautiful it was. Nestled among the tall pines, it felt like a refuge, almost magical in its isolation. Lisa stepped out of the car, her eyes lighting up as she took in the surroundings. For a brief moment, I found myself smiling, sharing in her excitement. Maybe this weekend could be a reset for us. We unpacked our bags and settled in, and for the first time in a while, I felt a flicker of warmth between us. We cooked dinner together, laughing over the way she fumbled with the spices. I had to admit, it felt good to share these simple moments without the shadow of betrayal hanging over us. Yet, the underlying tension was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. After dinner, we sat outside on the porch, wrapped in blankets as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The beauty of the moment was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but wish for a future where we could feel this way again without reservations. "Do you remember our first trip together?" Lisa asked, her voice breaking the silence. I nodded slowly, the memory flooding back. The beach trip, how could I forget? We got completely sunburned, but we had the best time. "Yeah," she chuckled softly. "We promised each other we'd always take these little adventures. But life got busy," I said, my voice low, "and we didn't prioritize each other the way we should have." The admission hung heavy between us, and I could see the sorrow in her eyes. "I know I messed up, and I'm so sorry for that. I never wanted to be that person. I want to be better for you, for us." I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment where I had to be honest and it could change everything. "I appreciate that, Lisa, but I need you to understand that it's not just about apologies. It's about action. You need to show me that you're committed to this, committed to us every day." "I will," she promised, her voice earnest. "I'm ready to do the work. I want to rebuild the trust I broke." I stared out at the stars beginning to twinkle in the night sky, my heart heavy with indecision. Trust isn't an easy thing to rebuild, Lisa. It takes time, and I don't know if I can be patient enough. "I'll wait as long as it takes," she said, her eyes glistening. "I love you, and I'm willing to fight for us." As the night wore on, we talked about everything, our dreams, our fears, and the mistakes we had made. It was cathartic, like lifting a heavy weight off my chest. In that moment, I could see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago. I realized that maybe, just maybe, she was still there beneath all the hurt and betrayal. By the time we turned in for the night, I felt a sense of hope mingled with uncertainty. We lay in bed, the silence between us now more comfortable than it had been in a long time. I could hear her soft breathing beside me, a reminder that she was still here, still fighting for us. The next morning was bright and sunny, a stark contrast to the previous day's introspection. We decided to hike a nearby trail, and as we walked hand in hand, I felt a sense of connection returning. We chatted about light-hearted things, sharing stories and laughter, and for a moment it felt like we were just a couple in love, free from the weight of our past. But as we reached a scenic overlook, I paused, taking in the view that stretched out before us. I knew that while the scenery was breathtaking, our journey was far from over. "Lisa," I said, turning to her, "I want to move forward, but it's going to take work on both our parts. We can't ignore the hurt. We need to address it, confront it, and find a way to heal together." She nodded, her smile fading slightly but determination shining through. "I agree. We need to put in the effort. I'm committed to making things right." It was a small step, but it felt monumental. As we walked back down the trail, I realized that perhaps we could create something new from the ashes of our past. Rebuilding wouldn't be easy, but if we both committed to honesty and growth, we might just find our way back to each other. After our hike, we returned to the cabin, where we spent the rest of the day talking, cooking, and enjoying each other's company. By the time we packed our bags to head home, I felt lighter, filled with a cautious optimism. As we drove back, I took one last look at the cabin in the rearview mirror. Knowing that it had served as a turning point for us, I was still guarded, still apprehensive, but I also felt a renewed sense of hope. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready to face it. I had learned that love isn't just about the good times, it's about navigating the stormy seas together. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but through this ordeal, I had discovered the strength within myself to demand better and the capacity to forgive, if only I allowed myself the time to heal. As we pulled into our driveway, I turned to Lisa, smiling slightly. "This is just the beginning, but let's make it a good one." She smiled back, hope shining in her eyes, and in that moment, amidst the uncertainty, I felt a glimmer of belief that maybe we could turn our love into something stronger than it had ever been before.